Welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast, the essential podcast for fathers navigating the complex but rewarding journey of raising daughters. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and I'm thrilled to bring you honest conversations with dads and daughters, sharing heartfelt stories, actionable advice, and real daughter perspectives that will help you be the best girl dad you can be. Welcome back to Girl Dad, the podcast. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and today we have a very special guest. Her name is Hunter Clarke-Fields, and she is a mindfulness mentor, coach, author, and the host of the Mindful Mama podcast. She's got over 2 decades of experience in both meditation and yoga practices, and she has taught mindfulness to thousands of people worldwide. One of her core philosophies is on reactive parenting and how to break the cycle of responding to behaviors with yelling or arguing or other stressful events. So I'm really excited to bring this to you. I think a lot of dads are going to find a lot of value out of this episode. And with that said, I would love to welcome Hunter to Girl Dad, the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Madeline. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you. You are an expert in the parenting world, and I would love to just kick this podcast off by you introducing yourself to the audience and maybe sharing some history and inspiration behind your Mindful Mama brand and podcast.
Sure. It's interesting because I'm not, it's when people introduce me as an expert in parenting, it's so funny because like the reason I do the work that I do here is because this was like the one thing I was like really failing at and I was really bad at. And so it's so funny to kind of think about it. I wasn't like naturally a little kid person. I wasn't fascinated with little kids or anything like that. In fact, I, oh, I was struggling enormously. I had a temper. Speaking of dads, that I inherited from my dad um when Maggie, my oldest daughter, was like 2 years old and a little younger and just like having those tantrums, I would have these tantrums back and I would yell and I would scare her. And it was so frustrating to me because that's exactly how I had decided not to parent because of my own relationship with my dad. So anyway, it I went on a long journey and it resulted in creating the mindful parenting course and writing Raising Good Humans, which is then, taken off around the world. It's crazy. So it so what I do is I bring together the tools of mindfulness to help us be less reactive, and then what to say then after that to not just regurgitate what your parents have said and to be more skillful and to parent more effectively. Yeah, but it all really comes from me and where I was really, really struggling at the time, and I was really, really struggling with my temper.
Well, thank you for sharing. I think what you're doing is amazing. And I think the reactive parenting happens to a lot of parents. So would love to talk more about that, actually. It's something you speak a lot about, and you help moms break this cycle of reactive parenting. So I would love for you to explain a little
And
bit more
dads.
about. Oh, and dads, yes, of course. Um, as you are today, very much so. But would love for you to explain what that is, what the implications of reactive parenting are on children, and really how you can break the cycle.
Sure. Yeah. So when we're parenting, right? Parenting is basically how we're interacting with our kids on a moment to moment basis, right? Like all those little moments add up to what is our parenting. And how we are with them on a moment to moment basis includes what we're saying, includes our body language, includes how we're listening, includes everything we're modeling. And when we're interacting with our kids, what especially, I mean, let's face it, it's a lot easier in like the good moments, right? Like it's great when everybody's happy, when everybody's, you could be the fun dad or the fun parent or whatever. Like that, those are the great moments. You're fine, probably. We're all fine in those moments. What's where we usually need help is when in the tough moments, right? When our kids are whining, when they're loud, when they're frustrating, when they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, all of those different moments. And in these moments, these are where we want to actually be able to choose how we'd like to respond, right? We want to maybe not say, like, you know, "Don't hit your little brother. If you do, you'll get smacked one," right? Like we don't want to say that, even if that's maybe what our parents said to us, right? Like that may be the tape that runs through our head. We probably don't want to say that, or we don't want to say, "What's wrong with you?" or whatever it is. Like these 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 things that we may have been conditioned into, right? Like by our
Mhm.
culture, by our own upbringing, etc. And so when we are reactive, like those are kind of the words that can come out of people's mouth. Like I was at a place watching a dad pull these two little kids in a wagon, and yeah, I saw him say like, "If you hit your brother again, I'm gonna smack you." And I thought, wow, he doesn't he that's just definitely what his father or mother said to him, and he's not thinking about like, what message does this send? Does this even make any sense? Like, what is this teaching my child? Like, it's not, none of that is happening, right? Like, he's not really thinking it through. And so we wanna actually just be able to make a conscious choice. And so what happens with that is, I mean, at least what I discovered is, so I was M Maggie was 1.5, 2 years old. I'm like, "Oh god, I'm failing. This is so stressful. I'm doing a terrible job. I'm, like, messing up my kid." And I'm listening to, like, great parenting coaches, talking about, like, good ways to respond to your kid, and so I'm like, "Oh, okay. Next time, I'm gonna say this instead, and I'm gonna know what to say." And then I would get into those moments, and the key thing to understand is that we can't just choose in the tough moments. Like, this is really important to understand. We have to understand our biology, and this is what, this is where in that those times I really turned back to, I had started studying mindfulness and Buddhism when I was like 17 to just help myself. And I turned back to that because what's happening in those moments is that then we're getting reactive, right? Like, so when we're getting reactive, what I'm talking about is our biological stress response is kicking in, right? Like when our kid hits their little brother or does something stressful, like it stresses us out a little bit. And so when we get a little stressed out, our amygdala, is the seat of that fight, flight, or freeze stress response in our brainstem, it actually kind of like it bypasses the prefrontal cortex area, which is behind our forehead, which is the seat of our logical reasoning and our impulse control and our creativity, problem solving, all of this like verbal ability, all this good stuff, right? Like it bypasses that so that we can just react when we're stressed. So when we talk about non-reactive parenting, there's a lot that goes into that, right? Like stems from this desire to make a conscious choice about how I'd like to respond. Like, you may decide, I would like to respond to my kid in the way that, like, great parenting coach told me to respond. I'm going to try that out. And yet, in order to do that, you have to be acting from your full brain. And in order to be acting from your full brain, you need to be able to be calming your stress response so that you have access to your whole brain. So that's what would happen to me. I would be like, oh, I'm going to respond to Maggie this way. It's going to be so much better. And then I would like lose it again. And I was so frustrated. I was even doubly guilty and frustrated with myself because then I had known I should have said that thing, and then I said something dumb and, because I was stressed, and the whole foundation of everything is us taking care of ourselves and taking care of our nervous system enough, taking care of our reactivity enough, being able to calm our stress response enough, being grounded enough to make a choice rather than just have some words come out of our mouth that or what our parents said to us. So that's really the basis of what is like the idea of non-reactive parenting. Reactive parenting is that the like mindless spitting it out. You hit your brother, I'm gonna pop you one, right? Like that's that. Or
Mhm.
just our yelling, right? Like that comes from a place of reactivity. And we wanna improve on that. Like we, if we could, 80% of the time get to a place where we're making a skillful, more conscious, better choice, then we're gonna have some good relationships with our kids.
Absolutely. I think that is so important because these are the moments that make all the difference when it comes to your relationship with your children. But you have to be super intentional about these moments because, like you said, if your amygdala is taking over the prefrontal cortex and you're just naturally going to respond a certain way, if you don't have any prior practice or intentionality or thought about how you want to react to these certain things, you're just going to naturally do whatever that default is. And that might be what your parents taught you, or it might be what just comes out naturally. And a lot of times that's not the right thing. And I would love to hear a little bit more about breaking this cycle, though, because if your parents were reactive parents, and I'm sure there's a lot of dads out there who feel that way. They relate to that. Maybe they had an authoritarian or distant father, and they tended to be more reactive. What are some of the first steps that these fathers could take to build a more connected and new type of relationship with his daughter when it comes to these moments of reactivity or how to respond to them?
Yeah, I mean, first I wanna say, like, you don't have to be perfect at this, like, you don't have to never yell at your kid. Like, you're gonna yell at your kid sometimes. You don't have to be, like, the paragon of perfection in parenting for you to have a good relationship with your kid. It really is, like, about being connected, being attuned, and, like, kind of caring, right? Like, when you yell, you say, "Oh, man, I'm sorry," right? You model that apology. And because, I we have so much pressure on ourselves, we have so much stress, we have everybody's life is life, just lifes all the time for everybody, and it's hard. It's so hard to be a parent. So I just wanna say from the bat, like, everything I'm saying here, like, you can make improvements, but we have to kind of be compassionate with ourselves because it's hard, and then no one's gonna get it perfectly at all. My dad is actually, like, a pretty amazing guy in so many ways. He was really affectionate with me, which was really nice. He used to rub my back. He was really encouraging for me. He was really encouraged creativity, and he was a real big booster of, like, I can do anything, which was amazing. And I love that about my dad. And my dad had this, like, badass scary temper. I remember cowering behind the door, hiding from him, crying because as he raged down the hall to spank me, and that was not a not an unusual situation, right? Like, that's not that unusual. Sometimes I think I had, like, just the right amount of trauma to be able to write about it well enough and raising good humans and to have to it's stuff we have to deal with. Um so when we've been raised with that, right? When we've been raised with some rage and anger and maybe physical abuse, right? Like and what I experienced, no one would call physical abuse when I was in, like, 1988, but maybe we would today, right? So it's things are changing.
Mhm.
Um so we may have decided to not this is not how we wanna do it, right? We know, right? Like, there's a bunch of research that shows that, like, yelling does not is not is not an effective parenting mode. It puts our kids into their own fight, flight, or freeze mode, so whatever behavior I mean, just logically, it doesn't make any sense because then whatever behavior we wanna change, like, they're not using their thinking mind, they're just in, like, survival mode then because 'cause they're scared because this large, scary person is yelling at them. We know that physical aggression, yelling, and things like that, it leads to more aggressive kids. It leads to things like things I did in high school, like drug use and partying and all kinds of things like that, right? And not necessarily good relationships. So we know hopefully we know, right, that these are not skillful means is kind of the
Mhm.
word language I like to use around this is not skillful. We know that shaming kids, like, "What's wrong with you?" and "How could you do that?" Like, we know, like, that's not skillful. That doesn't help them change their behavior. we do know that modeling everything we do and say is like the most important thing, and how we look at moments and how we look at discipline is important, right? Like, can we look at it like I'm teaching my child, right? Like, what does my child need to learn? These are like little crazy Neanderthals, and we're just trying to like help them get along in the world and know that whacking their brother is not how we do this, right? Like, this is not how we relate in the world, or whatever it is. Um, so we may say, okay, I have this intention to be different. I have this intention to be whatever it is, maybe more nurturing than my father, et cetera, all those different things. So, the really good news is that we have neuroplasticity, and what you practice grows stronger. The bad news, maybe, is that some of those things from your childhood are kind of ingrained um, in your mental formations already, right? So there's the brain makes neural pathways between the different neurons that are, the ones that have been practiced again and again and again have more fatty myelination, so it's easier and easier. It's easy for the brain to follow these habits and pathways. That's why the brain wants to take shortcuts. It wants habits. It likes to do that. And so when you're changing a pattern, it's really, really, really hard. Your habits and the habit energies of your past and all that are kind of working against you, and you may be back in this parent-child relationship, and it may be triggering this old stuff. So, one of the things we kind of talk about how to change it in kind of two different ways, and one is sort of the long term and one is the short term, but in the long term, it really, really helps to kind of like look at your baggage, to look at your upbringing. In Raising Good Humans, there are questions you can answer about how you were raised. Look at your upbringing, understand how things affected you. It's not fun, it's not sexy, it's like really nothing. No, but nobody wants to do this, but it's so much better to make some things conscious and to have some memories and to do some of that healing rather than have a big reaction to some minor thing your kid did because it's some baggage that you are bringing from your childhood about like not feeling listened to, and then all of a sudden you're raging at your kid, right? So part of it is to really deeply understand yourself, and then part of it and understand your past, and part of it is then to practice calming your nervous system. Practice for those moments where you're going to get triggered, where you're going to get really stressed before it happens. Because in the moment, you don't have access to your prefrontal cortex. You're
Mhm.
not going to make a great decision. Like, you can't trust yourself to make a good decision. It's just not going to happen. Like, so this is the fallacy that we do again and again and again. Oh, next time I'll do XYZ. No, instead, practice. Oh, I'm getting triggered right now. I'm getting upset right now. I need a minute, right? I talk about like the 3 R's. Recognize that you've been triggered. Remove yourself if everybody's safe and good, right? Like, take a break, and then use your resources. Use any resources you have to calm your nervous system, and to recognize that you being that grounded parent is the most important thing, right? It matters more than what the words that you say, right? Is the place you are at.
That makes a lot of sense. And is that the long term, or what's the second piece of that then?
Yeah, so in the long term, like, uncover your childhood, like, answer some questions, maybe talk to a therapist, talk to a friend, just write it out in a journal,
Mhm.
whatever. Like, try to not to let things come up and surprise you.
Gotcha.
And then
Yeah.
the short term is, yeah, practicing. I mean, I really encourage people to practice mindfulness techniques. I mean, for me, mindfulness practices completely transformed the way I was in the world as far as being. For me, I used to be kind of like a little roller coaster, right? Like, I'd be up and then I'd be down, and I'd go into sort of these pits of feeling kind of a little overwhelmed by life every week, maybe sometimes twice a week, every couple weeks, just at a regular basis. And after having a regular mindfulness meditation practice, that I was just so much more steady and able to ride those waves and not able to kind of spiral down. And it's been amazing for me to be able to be grounded in the face of a highly sensitive kid, right? Like who challenged me constantly. So I really recommend practices. Like maybe you can just sit in the morning by the side of your bed and practice 10 deep, slow breaths, right? Can you do that before you reach for your phone, which is hopefully plugged in downstairs away from your bedroom, right? Can you sit and take 10 deep breaths? Um can you, take a moment when you get in the car and just take 3 deep breaths before you rush to the next thing? Can you um hold your kid? One of my favorite things is a hugging meditation that comes from the Plum Village community of Thich Nhat Hanh, which is a hugging meditation is a 3 breath hug. So you just say, "Hey, can we do a 3 breath hug?" And you each do 3 deep breaths. It's amazing how that affects your nervous system. Um, there's all kinds of practices that are available for people, but I think it really helps to just have something that you do every day where you say, "I'm making an intention to calm my nervous system, to be present, and maybe I'm gonna feel I'm gonna be present in my body, feel the sensations in my hands and my feet and my belly. I'm gonna take a moment to practice pausing, maybe if here at the beginning of the day and so I have a little bit like my neural network has for pausing has myelinated itself a little bit more so that then when I actually need it, when my kid is freaking out, I can sit and before I respond, right? Before I make a conscious response.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm hearing that there's a lot of work that you can do outside solo by yourself on yourself and just deepening your sense of peace and calm. And then there's the work that you can do during the conversation when things happen and really being intentional about how that's going to go before you get into those situations. But that's kind of what I'm hearing there. And I love the pre-work. For me, I tend to run a little bit anxious, and I've been working a lot on that, and I have so many thoughts, my brain's just always going 100 miles an hour, but I started doing these little meditation walks every morning around the neighborhood, and there's a podcast, just morning meditations or something, so I just listen to 5 or 10 minutes, and it has been a game changer, especially because
Love that.
I'm getting the sunlight in my eye first thing, start the circadian rhythm, and then I'm starting it off with peace instead of like, go, go, go. And I always keep my phone on do not disturb for a couple hours after waking. Definitely don't keep it in the bedroom. So I feel I feel like I just got a gold star there.
Ding, ding, ding.
But yeah, but I think it is so important, to work on those things outside of other relationships, just your relationship with yourself first and foremost. So I love all of those tips there. I think those are amazing, and I think the dads listening will find that very valuable. And then when it comes to the actual situation that they might be in, let's say they have a teenage daughter and she lashes out. She says something that triggers the dad, and his first instinct might be to yell back or um, assert his dominance or something. What advice would you give in those situations on how to kind of intentionally respond with a mindful attitude?
Yeah, yeah, the, like, instinct, the ingrained habit is to get the last word. Ugh.
Yes.
Oy, I know that feeling. Um, so, again, sometimes you're not gonna do it so skillfully, so give yourself cut yourself some slack. You have permission to be human. It's okay if you don't do it perfectly, okay? You can still have a great relationship with your kid even if you don't do it great all the time. And in fact, your kids need to see you mess up and to need to see you be imperfect. It's really important for them to see that modeled. So, anyway, just want to put that out there. But say you're in this situation, right? And your teenage daughter is, giving you that attitude and you want to lash out. And So it may be that you do lose it and then later come back and say, "Oh man, honey, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. If we could do, if we could do it over, this is what I would have liked to have said." Right? That's that's one thing you can do, right? So if you don't make it. um if you do, if you do catch yourself, you can so one time I had I think my youngest daughter, she was like, I don't know, she was that old. I guess she was like 11 or something. She We had to watch a movie and I wanted her to go to bed and she was being nudgy and annoying and it was like, oh God, she's driving me crazy. So I was just trying to ignore her and read my book. And then she like laughed at me from the stairwell and it was like, whoo, like this volcano erupted inside me. And it was this trigger I didn't know that I had at that point. And but the nice thing about this is that I had practiced, like, my skillful means enough that instead of, like, yelling something unskillful at her, I was able to yell something skillful. So, like, say so what I did is I stood up and I was like, "I'm really angry right now." I, like, went in the front door, slammed the door. I slammed my poor library book it was onto the carport, and then I walked up and down the street for 10 minutes to calm down. So, sometimes, like, say, it can be helpful to, like I mean, maybe you're yelling, but I was so proud of myself because I yelled something skillful. Like, I didn't yell, "You
Mhm.
little rotten kid." I yelled, "I'm really angry," right? Which is me owning my feelings. Maybe I was owning them loudly, but I was owning them. Uh,
Right.
if if you have the awareness to inside yourself be like, "Oh, I'm starting to get really mad here," right? Like, this is the 3 R's. First, recognize that you're triggered. You can recognize it out loud, or you can recognize it internally, like, "Oh, I'm starting to get real maybe I'm getting really PO'd at what you said, and I'm having a big reaction. I need a break." Right? So you use I statements, and you tell your kid, like, what's happening for you.
Mhm.
You don't lie and say, "Everything's fine, honey. I just need a little break right now." Because she can see that what's happening for you, right? So, instead of saying anything you just say, "I'm feeling really angry. I'm feeling really frustrated. I'm taking a break." And then you remove yourself. Especially with a teen, the remove yourself part is good. So you remove yourself. You walk up and down the street. You take deep breaths. You shake it out, right? There's this great book called by Robert Sapolsky called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And
Hmm.
you think about that, right? Like a zebra's fight, flight, or freeze, stress response is triggered, right? Like a hungry pack of lionesses comes and is like chasing the zebra through the savannah. Why are they not like so stressed out? Um, and it's because they do what our dogs do. They like go, "Ugh," they like shake their whole bodies, right? Because stress is it tightens your muscles. It raises your heart rate, right? Like there's all these physical responses to stress besides cutting off your prefrontal cortex. It does all these responses to, your shoulders get so tight, your hands get
Mhm.
clenched, your jaw, all that stuff. So you can shake it out, try to loosen your muscles, do deep breaths. Breathing is cliche because it works. It really, really, really works. If you can do extended exhales, meaning, breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. Probably, you can do one of those and you can feel the difference. If you do 6 of
Mhm.
them, it's really, really gonna help because each inhale is like a mini fight, flight, or freeze stress response. Each exhale is like a mini rest and relax response. So it's kinda like a biohack. So you recognize what you're feeling, you remove yourself, and then you're this what I'm describing now is use your resources, right? These are your resources to calm your stress response. So you do all that, and then when you go back, then some communication work needs to happen, right? Um, hey, when you said XYZ, I felt super angry. And, you say, "Can we talk?" And then you need to talk about it, right? When um Sometimes one of my things I used to say to my daughters when they were, like, around 13, when I was, like, getting, like, that attitude, um, I instead of responding to that, like, it's basically like a virtual fist, right? Like, instead of responding to the fist with another fist, right? Like, "Oh, like, I'm gonna get that last word," and that aggression, if they're giving it to you, you have to kinda do a little jujitsu move of being like, so I would say something like, when you talk to me like this, I feel," and then what you have to do is you have to let them know how their behavior makes you feel underneath the anger and how it affects you, right? How it affects your life, right? So this is like a three-part I message. And I also talk about this in Raising Good Humans, but when you talk to me like that, I feel, and what I would have to take a minute to think about is, what do I feel underneath my anger or my frustration? And I would think I really feel sad, right? Because she's com- pushing me away, right? It's this disconnection kind of language or attitude or whatever it is. And I'd be like, I feel sad. I feel kind of hurt. And it makes me, and then the third part is, how does it affect you? What are the consequences on you of this behavior? And it would be, and it makes me not really wanna be with you, right? Like, when you talk to me like that, and I wouldn't get like, "Oh, mother, so sorry, darling, of course, let us embrace," right? Like, that wouldn't that wouldn't happen, but, um, but there would be no fight. Like, the fight like, it's like this jujitsu, like, they're bringing some fight to you, and you just, like, kinda side swipe it, right? You're just like, "Oh, that," you're opening yourself up kind of vulnerably, and what that does is they see you as human, and it reminds them that they love you and they care about you, and then they would then, in, like, an hour, reconnect in a more normal capacity, right? And that's great modeling, to model how to communicate skillfully, how to be honest in your close relationships, how to let your kids know how these things affect you. And actually also much more effective too than kind of fighting back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we know from science, right? Like, it actually, you'll get your point across better. They'll be able to listen to you because they're not in that fight or flight mode, as
Yeah.
you spoke about. And I love that they're actually learning how to navigate their emotions themselves too. Like you said, it's a modeling technique. You'll feel better as the father or as the parent because you'll come out from this conversation not regretting, saying this or acting a certain way or yelling too much or whatever it may be that you might feel after the interaction. And on the other hand, you've got your child or your daughter who just learned something about how to navigate emotions. And that's extremely valuable. And I think especially in today's digital world, there's a lot of pressure for young women, teenage daughters, on social media and all these different things. And there's a lot of anxiety and depression going around right now. And I think that talking about emotions and understanding how to navigate one's emotions is such an important topic. And by fathers and mothers successfully navigating emotions and teaching their children these kinds of things, it's so healthy for them. So I think that's really well said. And then I would love to talk about kind of the father-mother dynamic. So,
Mm.
helping support your wife and the mother of your children, for all the dads out there, just based on everything that you know and your years of research and conversations, maybe what are some things that you would like these fathers to understand about their wives or ways that they can support their wives?
I mean, I think that kind of the truth is that all relationships in some ways are the same. It's kind of the sort of secret, in some ways, of like that I talk about in the book. It's like this, like, somehow, in some ways, the way you talk to your your infant, your 2-year-old, and your teenager, and your friends, and your wife is all the same in some ways, right? And it involves, um, and one of the most important skills I think it involves for all of them is really listening, right? Like it's this lost art of listening, like really trying to see and hear someone. It's really rare and unusual these days to really see and hear someone. Like everybody's having conversations while they're like looking at their phone or while they're doing another thing or whatever it is. But we can take our partner, and, for the fathers who have wives out there, the fathers who have husbands out there, whatever, right? Like, look at your partner and and this is something you can also do with your child, but to imagine your partner or your child as like th- to, the object of your mindfulness. So mindfulness is the practice of putting our attention in the present moment with kindness and with curiosity. So that means um, we're trying to not, like, take shortcuts and judgment. We're trying to, like, see this person, or we're trying to see this moment with fresh eyes, like, as a beginner, right? This is the idea of beginner's mind. And so one of the things you could do is bring this idea of beginner's mind, of curiosity to your partner. Who are they today? What's going on in their life? What if they're talking to you, put all the stuff down, right? Like, look at them as if they're a brand new person, because in a way they are, right? Like, we all are like a river that you don't step into the same one twice. Like, impermanence, change is the only constant thing in life, and everybody is changing all the time in every moment. And so, who is this person in front of you? Put everything down, be curious, hear what they're saying, hear what they're not saying. And then, with your body, like, still and just, like, practicing listening, and this listening, it's you're not gonna do that perfectly either, like, you're gonna get distracted by, like, how am I gonna respond? What am I gonna say in response? Or, "That reminds me of the story of this," or, "Oh, I think I need to do XYZ," or, "I wanna go get some chocolate ice cream." Whatever it is, right? Like, you're gonna be interrupted by all those things, but the practice of mindfulness is to just again and again and again, like, return your attention to the object of your mindfulness, of your concentration, and this builds an ability to really be present. And when you can listen like that, it's like, and then there are, like, words you can say and things like that, but it really is about the presence of listening that matters more than the words that you say. You may reflect back to them what they're feeling and thinking a little bit, like, "Oh, that sounds frustrating," or whatever it is, or, "Oh, I imagine that was hard," right? But when somebody's really upset, what they need most from us is not solving the problem, unless they're like, "Hey, I have a problem. I need your help. Can you help me solve it?" Don't try to solve the problem. First, just kind of sit and listen and be with them in the feelings. And this is like this idea of just, this is like we are with each other. We're interconnected. If you go down to a microscopic level, there's no place where you begin and the world ends, right? Like, we are all very much interconnected. Like, there's always exchange with everyone and everything, and our feelings and our thoughts and all of that is all exchanging too. So if you can practice to be grounded, to listen, to bring this curiosity, this beginner's mind, that is one of the best practices you can bring to any relationship, truly, but especially to your partnership, right? To think of it as like a mini meditation when your partner is talking to you, and you just practice, like, I don't know, like, say, "Okay, I'm mentally setting in my head a timer of, whatever, few minutes to just practice doing nothing else but being curious." And that's an incredible gift to be listened to like that. People pay great
Mhm.
money to therapists to be listened to like that, right? But we
True.
can do it for each other. We can do it for each other. And it's this beautiful, loving gift to give.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that quote, and I'm sure I'll botch it a little bit, but it's, "People forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you make them feel."
Yeah.
And so that just goes hand in hand with what you're saying, and I think it's so true. Just being able to listen and be there, is so amazing. Such a great gift. Well, thank you. This has been an amazing conversation. I would love to just close out with you've already given such amazing advice throughout this podcast, but what would be your final piece of advice for all the dads with daughters out there based on your research and everything that you teach?
I mean, I guess I would just say, you know, love them, listen to them, think about being, there's this woman, Annie Burnside, a long time ago, wrote a book called Soul to Soul Parenting. And the way she talked about it, she said, instead of being role to role, right? Like, I am father and you are a child. Oh man, did that drive me freaking crazy when I was like a teenager with my dad and you were my child. You know, it doesn't work. Like, instead, let's be soul to soul, right? Rather than role to role. Like, be curious about who is this human in front of you? This is a miracle that you are here, right? With me. Is amazing that we are walking here on earth together. And how can I, be in your life from a soul to soul level, right? Like, people say you don't want to be friends with your kids, and I get that makes sense to the level of like, no, you don't want to be like telling your kids your marital problems and stuff. Like, if you tell that to your friends, like, no,
Yeah.
that's not what you want to do. But you want to be like that soul to soul, right? Like, I am here for you, and then practice really being present for you, and then also practice being compassionate with yourself, because it's really hard to offer yourself forgiveness when you mess up, because you will, and remind yourself that you have permission to be human.
I love it. Well, thank you, Hunter. It's been a pleasure having you on, and I'm sure all the dads listening are going to find this episode extremely valuable. So, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Madeline. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into Girl Dad, the podcast. If you found today's conversation helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow girl dad. I read every review and truly take your words to heart. To close out, remember, your intentional moments make lasting legacies. See you next week.